Hey Internet, I think this thing is streaming. It's been quite a while. Uh, oh yeah, it looks like we're up and running. Okay, yeah, it's been a while. I've been wanting to do this more, but I just haven't really been feeling up to being at my desk. So um, I think I'm gonna try and work on a couple things today. YouTube channel that I'm really fond of called Hank Strange. I was working on putting together some T-shirts and things like that to help with the adpocalypse over on YouTube that you might have heard about. So I thought I'd help him out with some designs. I told him I'd be happy to come up with a couple things, and I did have a couple of ideas, one based on an old idea that I did, and another one just based specifically on Hank and his personality and his channel and kind of how he does things. So one thing that I really enjoy that he always does at the end of his show is whoever he's with, he talks with them, he helps them plug their channel or plug whatever they're up to, their business and stuff like that. And then he always asks them every time, you know how we end this, right? And then he gives a little peace sign. They do the peace sign. That's the log off, and it's pretty iconic, classic Hank. So I thought maybe I'd try to put together a T-shirt that sort of captures that with that text. You know how we end this, right? And then that peace sign hand. So the text I'll be doing probably in Photoshop or Illustrator, and then the hand I probably want to hand draw, and then we'll maybe vectorize it later in Illustrator. So I thought I'd just go ahead and work on that today. Probably won't be a really long stream, but we'll go through a little bit of kind of how I draw hands, and maybe that'll be helpful for some folks who struggle with that. I'm not really the expert on any of it, and it's been quite a while since I've been doing a lot of drawing. I really haven't drawn anything since the last stream, so obviously I'm not a pro going all the time, but I feel like I have an okay grasp on it, and I'd like to go ahead and start working on that, and we'll just kind of talk through it as we draw that. So with that peace sign, you're generally working with a the two first fingers out. You got your other three fingers folded in, and it really translates well, and most people draw it from the palm side of the hand. That way you've got the fingers that are closed in there, really selling the fact that it's a hand, making it really easy to distinguish what you're looking at. Unfortunately, Hank doesn't make it that easy. He always seems to have his palm towards himself when he does his peace sign, which is definitely cooler, but maybe a little bit more difficult to draw. So we might have a little trouble with that. We'll go through a couple of tries and just try to make sure we capture it right in a drawing that that lends itself well to portraying that hand very well. One benefit of drawing a hand is I have two of them, so I get to look at my own hands as I'm drawing and have that sort of live model reference, which should be helpful. So first thing I'm going to do here is start laying out the hand itself, and I'm thinking I want to draw, trying to decide if I want to draw left hand or right hand. I think I'm going to just go ahead and draw the right hand, and we'll go from there. So the shape of the palm is what I'm going to start with to kind of get that angle, and we'll just kind of block that in here. It's basically a square. We're going to cant the wrist downward. I think that's going to help kind of sell it here. We've got that thumb coming up, that sort of first digit of the thumb, and that's going to be folded behind. And then we've got our knuckles here. I'm just going to go ahead and put in placeholders for those so we get an idea of kind of what they look like. And generally what I will do is just draw out a digit at a time, real blocky. And I'm going to try to get those bottom digits in there just to kind of sell it, since I don't have the opportunity to draw them on the other side. And obviously I've got my fingers way too close together here. So let's, actually I think what I'm going to do is scrap that. Let's come back to our pencil. Oops. Come back to our pencil. I'm going to actually draw this much smaller. That'll just be a lot easier for me at the moment. And can I get that finger layout there? Okay. So that is pretty rough. I feel like that pencil's drawing a little weird at the moment. That could just be me. I am really not liking the way that I'm pulling this off. Maybe it's because I got that wrist canted funny. So that's kind of how he does it. But I don't know. Looking at my own hand, trying to make that bunny ear sign and see where I'm screwing up. So I'm actually going to just draw that again. Yeah, what I'm going to try to do here is curve the bottom of the hand in a little shorter. I think I made that too blocky. And when I make that sign, my index finger comes pretty much straight out. Middle finger cants down. And then those two fingers really curve down a lot. Got my thumb back there. Those knuckles on those fingers, those tendons really flex there, so we'll probably want to detail those in. There we go. I like that a little bit better. Some fingernails going on there. Okay, I might adjust that a bit as I go, but I think actually might be kind of happy with that. So let's get rid of that one. Let's grab this one. Let's just scale that up a little bit to work on it. Cant it like so. Okay, and then I'm just going to drop that opacity way down. and start working on a new layer here. So let's see if we can get some of this detail in here. And you know what, actually I think I canned that prematurely. Whoops, I didn't actually grab that with that tool. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. I'm just on an empty layer. Okay. I do that all the time in Photoshop, but then I get a warning in Photoshop. I don't get it here in Sketchbook. Okay. Go back up to our new layer and let's start detailing. You know, I think I'm going to want a little more resolution. I feel like it always starts out pretty low res. So I'm going to resize this here to, just do 200%. Whoop. That's not what I meant to do. I thought that was locked. I guess it wasn't locked. No, it is locked. Oh, there we go. I don't know, what did I miss there? Did you see that? It looked like it was totally wide, stretched wide all the way across the screen for me. Okay, let's get to work on some of these details. So I'm gonna get that knuckle. Get that thumb going. Actually, curve that. Okay. Now, depending on your hand, you know, some hands are certainly meatier than others. Mine are pretty large, and that's going to make a big difference in how you draw those finer details in the knuckles and space between them and all of that. But I think that Hank and I are pretty close, and I don't think anyone's going to really read that much into it. So there we go. Let's curve that down. Okay, I think that kind of captures it. I don't think I have that angle quite right. Let's fix that. My hand, get that tendon in there pretty obvious. So I'm going to put a line in there. It's kind of hard to decide which details you want to add and which are going to come in through shadows. So, for me, got a little bit of a vein that comes across there, one that comes up here. I have pretty meaty hands. They don't show up that much, but they do kind of show. And some of these lines right now I'm just making as reference. So kind of, I think, showed a little bit of my process. I don't remember if I talked about it before in the last streams, but I tend to redraw things a couple times. But I want that sort of basic layout first. And then I'll get into trying to figure out how I'm going to do the lighting on here. So I think in order to really get a lot of good detail through a t-shirt print, which will be just a single color, either black or white artwork, I'm going to have to really get some good shading going on that. A little bit kind of old school line art, kind of fall back on that sort of comic books beginning that I had and go from there. So now that line I feel like I just kind of made up because I feel like it should be there, but I don't think it is. Okay, so pretty happy with that. Delete that underlayer. That. Can't say I've ever really noticed how far back Hank tends to trim his fingernails, but we'll just assume they're somewhere around there. Okay, let's pop up a new layer. Let's do this layer. Get down in opacity. Okay. So now what I want to do is start shading that in. Let's see, how do we want to approach this? Oh, might hear the Air Force flying by there. I am near the Air Force Academy and an Air Force base, and I get some pretty low flies over my house in the afternoon here, so sorry about that. Hopefully it's not too loud. Okay, so I think what I need to do here is, let's see, where's my rotate? There it is. Oh yeah, that's backwards. I forgot about that. Okay. That's probably about the angle that I want to make it on the shirt. And I'm going to put some text above it. I think in order to sell that well, I probably want to have my light coming from the top. Okay, let's pick a pen. And let's see, how does this one look? I don't really like that. Let's see if I can remember how to. There we go. That's good. I feel like it used to show an actual line being drawn. Not sure would be helpful right now. Oh, that could be interesting. Does that look like we've actually drawn it? Huh. Okay, well let's try and use that. That's kind of interesting. It really thickens up on the stroke. On which way I'm pressing. What else do we have here? Okay. Well, that's probably more the pen I want to use. Man, it's been a long time since I've done any shading like this. I feel like that's backwards. I wish I could switch that. I guess I just got to draw it backwards. I feel like when I stroke, the end of the stroke should be thinner, but I'm getting thicker at the end. So let's, oh man, that really blows up. Do I have some settings for this thing? I feel like my sensitivity is just way too high. Maybe I need to adjust that in my tablet properties. Let me get my mouse over. Okay, so tip view. Let's get that as firm as possible. Okay. Tilt sensitivity up. Whoa. Oh, that made a big difference. Okay, let's get that back. Sorry, you can't really see what I'm doing over here. You just see me making weird marks. So my Wacom tablet has some different settings, and so I feel like max pressure. Maybe if I do that, so it's not as extreme, because I feel like it's really extreme. Oh. Okay, well, let's try it out. Yeah, that's a little better. Boy, that's still way too much. I wonder if I should be using a different tip on my pen. Let's take a look at that. Unfortunately, I don't have my webcam set up to be able to show you what it looks like when you change these. But if you've seen the Wacom pens, they come with a sort of a little base, and you stick the pen in the base kind of like it's an inkwell. That inkwell comes apart, and they give you a bunch of different pen tips inside. I usually like to use a felt tip because I feel like I marred up the surface of my screen a little bit with the harder tips, although that might be what I really need. I typically use one that has a little spring in the middle of it. It gives you a lot of, I feel like it gives you a lot of control over pressure, but I'm going to try one of the felts that's not. Well, okay. I actually do feel like I'm getting a more consistent result there, so that's probably good. Let's see if we can just can't remember which one of these is which here. Let's shrink that down. Yeah, I think that's doing it. Okay. Let's get rid of those dots. Okay, so we're going to sort of block that in. It just feels so backwards to me to draw the opposite direction there. Normally I would draw down toward the bottom of the finger there, draw out the deeper shadow to lighter, but this pen just feels so backwards. Oh, you know what? Here's a similar, more basic pen. I kind of feel like that's sort of the same. Okay, well, I'm running out of time here. I gotta get this going, so let's just maybe I should do it as a pencil drawing. Okay, I think what I'm going to do this a little bit more, maybe sort of traditional. Basically just use, I think the chisel is what I would like. I'm going to just kind of bring in some pool shadows. Pool shadows is the term I think that we still use in like comic book art, where you, or anime, certainly very popular in the anime, manga, where you just have a hard shadow line and it's just all solid, no real variation in there necessarily. just defines the basic form. It tends to be popular in comic books in conjunction with crosshatch, which is what I was intending to use more of. More of a crosshatch shading method, but I think maybe just to start things out, do it this way. I kind of want to get a little bit of a definition to the web and the finger there. Okay. Yeah, I'm finding myself moving around my desk, putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on my back, and it affects my ability to draw a good line. So I need to remember to use that handy rotate tool. And typically what I will do when I use this type of shading is I'll go back and just blur it out really good. Blur it out, almost like what was the point of even trying to create that detail. But the idea is to get a really smooth shadow in the end, but just start with something really simple. Okay, and then that vein that came through there. Kind of detail that in. Let's think about this shadow. Okay, now we're going to have some shadows over here on that thumb. And just put a small amount of shadow on the back there. Yeah, that's probably not necessary, so I'm going to blur it out. Also, I don't know if you can hear it. I think some of the sound of my music comes through my microphone. I've got it turned off in my stream software, but my PC sounds anyway turned off in my stream software, but I do see that little indicator bouncing that with the music, the volume's changing. So I don't know what the rules are on whether or not I can share my music with you through this streaming or not. So this isn't probably the most typical music that I listen to on while I'm drawing, but I think it has the best chance of being maybe out of royalty. So that's what I've got selected. It's some old big band music. So I think it's something called 50 Big Band Hits or something. Came on a couple of CDs. I don't remember when I got it or how I got it, but that's what we're listening to if you hear it. And if that gets annoying, let me know, and maybe I can adjust that or something. But okay, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to blur some of these edges here a little bit. You can see in there we just lost a ton of detail that I bothered to put in on that. Okay, there, we're going to need a lot of it. So I'm just blurring out those edges. Not all of them, so you can kind of see where that vein overlaps. I kind of want to keep that stiff. Some of this actually that I'm blurring right now I want to keep pretty stiff as well, so I'm going to go back with the eraser and sort of cut back into that. And what we end up with, I think, is kind of a cool effect. That eraser is too big, so down a little bit. There we go. So there's kind of folds of the knuckle in there. There we go. Okay, so we'll leave that layer there. Let's pull up a new layer. Let's grab our airbrush and start just doing some really basic shading. Sort of overlay that. And that would be a faster way to do all the work I just did, but I don't know. I don't feel like I get as much control out of it that way, so I'm just going in and erasing out some of these highlight parts. brush. Let that kind of blur out a little bit. Grab my blur brush. Just to blend that a little bit better towards the back there in a few places. Okay. Back and add a little more of a pool shadow. I don't know if I'm going to want to keep this or not, so I am doing it on a separate layer. I need some way, because this will eventually be a t-shirt artwork, I need some way to sort of blur that out or blend that out without actually using a fuzzy tool like this. And I might try and shortcut things with a Photoshop filter for some of this stuff. Kind of get some of the crosshatch baked in for me. So I've got some arthritis issues and fatigue issues, and frankly I'm just kind of running out of steam here. So let's just clean up some of this airbrush layer. Clean up some of that layer with the cool shadows. Okay. Okay. I think that I'm happy with that as a start, and I think that I'm at a point where I probably need to stop anyway. So I'll let that sit with me for a while and decide how I feel about it, and see what I can do with it later, maybe in Illustrator to clean that up. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream here, and hopefully we can get back to this real soon. So thanks for joining me here, and I guess let me know, go ahead and comment if you're on Twitch, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, drop a comment. Let me know if you're hearing that music, if it's really bothering, or if it's not. And if you have ideas on tools that you like or settings you like to use in Autodesk Sketchbook or with your Wacom tablet, share that with me. Let me know. I'd love to learn some new tricks there and maybe be able to do some of the stuff a little bit better. And if you're really interested in the Illustrator work, then maybe I'll stream that. But it tends to be pretty long and tedious work most of the time, so I probably won't bring you guys along unless you decide that you just really want to see that. Illustrator, I'm talking about Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector artwork program. So what I'm working with here is what we call a raster image. It's just like a JPEG or anything you normally see on the internet on your screen. When you zoom in on it, it gets blurry and pixelated. Vector artwork is what we tend to want to use in print, or if we want to scale something to be very large and stay crisp. So it uses math instead of pixel by pixel, what level of hue and shade is on each pixel. It records by math, lines and strokes and thicknesses and colors and all that. And it preserves all those details at any level. So this will eventually be print work, and Lola, Hank's wife, told me that really wasn't necessary. Their t-shirt company will probably vectorize artwork for them. So depending on how I feel, maybe I'll just keep it as is and let them do that work. But that's something I tend to like to do myself. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what we do. But either way, it's going to be a kind of a drawn-out process, and it's a lot of tedious work adjusting little vertices and lines with little handles, and it's not as fun to watch. I don't think. It's kind of cool to see sped up, but I don't know how to do that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just rambling. So that's the end of the stream. I'm going to take a break for a while, and hopefully get back to this later this week sometime, this weekend maybe, or early next week. So I'll kind of see how I do, how I recover from sitting here and bending over this screen. So yeah, that's life with disability, I guess. So yeah, that's it. I think I've covered everything. Didn't really go into as much detail as I'd like to on how I build out that hand. I don't think this is actually the greatest hand pose to do that with, but just to go over that generally, I like to build out each digit, like I think I said, one digit at a time, using blocks or cylinders, drawing cylinders basically. And I'd like to think of the outside of the finger, or the top of the finger, where the knuckle is, as being a fixed distance. If you fold up your finger, you can look at it, you can see that the distance between each knuckle is pretty much the same, no matter whether you've got that finger extended or totally curled in. But the inside overlaps quite a bit. That foreshortens quite a bit. You get that your skin kind of bunches up in there. So the bone and the tendon on the outside tend to be more rigid. So just try to think about that when you're drawing a hand, especially when you're trying to draw those fingers curved in. You want to make sure that the outside edges is really where you're sort of measuring your distance. There's a little give and take in there. You kind of got to eyeball that a little bit, but that's going to be the best line or dimension to focus on to make sure that those fingers get the right sizes, even when they're curled up, so you don't end up having giant balled up fists and tiny open hands, or huge open hands and tiny balled up fists. That should be consistent based on that outside dimension, or the back of the hand dimensions. Those are going to generally be the same. and then the inside is where it folds on itself. So in this we have two very straight fingers and two very hidden fingers and a thumb that's pretty much almost entirely hidden, so not a great pose to really demonstrate that. But definitely, it's a fun exercise to work on drawing hands. Drawing hands well is always difficult, something you really want to practice a lot. I definitely haven't practiced enough. So keep it up, work on it. Really great way to focus on that is just to draw a whole bunch of hands at once. And if you're like most of us, you have two hands, so you probably only draw with one of them, and that gives you a great model to look at for the other one. So try drawing your own hand. Get good at drawing your own hand for a while. Put it in different poses. Try to figure out ways that you can overlap those fingers and draw them that way so that you can get a sense of where they sit in space. Hold something, get something to hold on to, and draw your hand gripping things. That's something that I think most people overlook when they're drawing hands. They just bring their hand. They don't bring any props to hold. But a lot of times you're going to draw hands, especially if you're into comic books and fantasy stuff, sci-fi, whatever like me, you're probably going to want to draw that hand gripping a sword or a gun or a shield or any number of weapons and things like that. Not to mention just constantly characters are going to be gripping things in their environment, whether they're holding on to a support, a staff, climbing a ladder, holding a rope, all these different things. So just draw your hands a whole bunch. It makes a great exercise. Don't get super detailed on it. Do real quick little tiny sketches, kind of like I did here. For this one, it really helped me a lot actually to just start it really small and then just blow it up to detail it when I'm ready to do that. That's a benefit I have working digitally. If you're working on paper, obviously, that's not something that you can really do very easily. I know I went through that back before I had access to technology like this, back before that really even existed. We always worked on hand. We built light boxes. I would actually sometimes draw something small, scan it into my computer, blow it up, print it, then trace it and draw over it with my light box to try and do that. And I spent half an hour doing what takes me half a minute, half a second, whatever, to set up here. So technology is really helpful for that. And if you're thinking about getting into technology, drawing on the computer directly, I'm using a Wacom Cintiq tablet. It's a 24-inch display. It's a little bit older model. It doesn't have the touch screen interface, although I think maybe I prefer that. I'm not really sure. I feel like I like to rest my hands on the screen while I'm working, and that would obviously be a problem on a touch screen, I think. So, but it would be nice to be able to just use my hand on the screen to rotate instead of having to use a little dial on the side of the monitor. So those are options. They're pretty expensive. I was kind of blown away when I was able to afford this screen back in the day, and that was a huge blessing for me. Something I never really thought I would afford, but my wife helped me budget, and we made it happen, and it's been a huge blessing to me. But something you can do in the meantime, or on a budget, you can get little tablets that don't have a screen on them, but you can draw on them and watch your screen. Kind of like using your mouse, I guess you get used to it. I had trouble with that. I felt like the disconnect was too great to overcome, and I'd rather just draw on paper and scan it. But you might differ your opinion there, especially if it's something that you're just starting with. Starting from that might be a little easier than trying to transition to it later on in drawing. Another good option is using a tablet. So you've got some great tools available on tablets, but right now I guess Windows Ink is the thing. With Windows 10 they came out with Windows Ink, and you can use a Wacom pen. It's actually produced by Wacom with your Surface, Microsoft Surface, or a similar dual device like that, and you get a fairly good level of detail in recognizing pressure and angle of the pen or the stylus that you're using. as opposed to using one of those cheap, like the iPad pen that you buy at the dollar store or whatever that just is like a rubbery nub, and you can't get a lot of detail control out of that. So the new Windows Ink devices are pretty cool. You can find them at Best Buy or whatever. So okay, that's enough babbling and not doing anything. So I am actually going to go ahead and just cut the stream here, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks.